Hello everyone, welcome to Teaching, Listening and Speaking, and this is week 2. What we will learn today, it will be the fundamental theories of the whole course, so make sure that you go slowly, you're trying to learn as much as possible, trying to understand the lecture first in the recorded version, and after this week, we are going to meet each other on live, and we are going to discuss about this together. So the first question that I would like to start for this week. What do you know or believe about TESOL? Before we start talking about anything, I would like to talk about TESOL first. TESOL. So in our class last time, I left one question for you guys to think about, and it might be some similar question that you probably have it in your mind. How can we teach English when we're not English native speaker? To answer this question, I would like to introduce you guys one word, TESOL. Means that English belongs to everyone in the whole world. It depends on where English happens. We will explore those together. What makes a good EFL teacher? How can you know whether you're good enough or not? I do believe that you guys เราเรียน principle of teaching มาแล้ว We may come back to think about ourselves, like how can we know if we are doing a good job or not, or what about our previous teachers that we studied together before. So I would like you guys to pause here. Think to yourself, what or who are your most favorite teachers? If you close your eyes without any theories โดยที่ไม่ใช้ theory อะไรเลยนะเราคิดว่าใครเป็นครูที่ดีในชีวิตเราบ้าง It could be anyone from your elementary school, from your primary school, or from your high school, or from the university. Also this time, write the name down and then we come back together. This part, I do believe that you guys have some of those in your mind, and we will explore them together. สมมุติว่าเรามีชื่อครูในใจแล้วเขียนไว้ที่กระดาษ I have my own as well. Somebody told me that good teacher has to be very kind. คนใจดีเท่านั้นถึงจะเป็นครูที่ดีได้ Good at the content อะไรเงี้ยก็แล้วแต่ It depends on what you are looking for, and that seems like a kind of personal preference. Ladies and gentlemen, may I welcome Showman. Showman come up. ชาวแมนก็เดินออกมาเลยก็บอกเลยว่า
เฮ้ยอย่าเถียงกันว่าอยู่ดีหรือไม่ดีมันไม่มีวันที่ตัดสินได้หรอกมันเหมือนแบบ moral ของคนอะไรเงี้ย You don't have to fight to each other about that.
He create a standard of a good EFL teacher มาให้เรามาดูกันนะคะ And that was written in 1987. However, until now 2021 updated versions, but they're all still in the same standard. ไม่มีใครโค่นชาวแมนได้เลย First one ชาวแมนบอกว่า If you would like to identify someone to be a good EFL teacher, you need to concern about the general pedagogical knowledge. I like the word pedagogical knowledge. Pedagogy เคยได้ยินคำนี้ไหมอาจจะเคยได้ยินมาจากprinciple of teaching มาบ้างแล้วนะคะ I would like to explain ง่ายที่สุด simple ที่สุดแล้วกันIt's about classroom management, about how you manage to communicate the knowledge. ให้คนอื่นฟังเราสอนรู้เรื่องไหม How you transfer the knowledge. Have you ever been in some class where you paid attention and then you left the room without understanding anything? And that could not be counted as a good language teacher because they failed พังเลยเจ๊งกระโปง because they failed at transferring content. ไม่มี pedagogic ไม่มี strategies ในการสอนทำให้ไม่นับเป็นครูภาษาที่ดี The second one we don't talk about content yet still มาอันดับ2นะคะแซงมาเลยคือ if you would like to be a good EFL or ESL teacher the second characteristic or criteria that you need to concern very much it's a knowledge of learners and their characteristicเฮ้ยยังอยู่ที่วิธีการถ่ายทอดอยู่ดี First one เราต้องรู้ว่า how to teach. The second one you need to know who they are, who are the learners. You need to understand the characteristic of high school students. You need to understand the characteristic of the university student, even go deeper. If they are the university students, which major are they in? There would be some, stereotype or some assumptions of that characteristic. Do they like lecturing? Do they like doing activities? 2 อันแล้วนะ We move to the third one. It is the knowledge of educational context. Here it is explained that you need to understand the school, educational system, like what people are expecting for learning English or learning language in that particular context, in that particular society. For example, สมมติเราไปเป็นครูภาษาอังกฤษที่ประเทศกุ๊กกิ๊ก You need to understandกุ๊กกิ๊ก cultures as well. They probably have a very sensitive issues with British accent, so you're not going to teach them that accent. To understand political issues, you need to understand what people expect there. So this is the third criteria. But here in the word knowledge of educational context, man did also include the knowledge in the particular field as well. ซึ่งในพาร์ทขา3เนี่ยชาวแมนบอกว่าก็รวมหมดนั่นแหละที่เหลือก็คือทั้งความรู้ที่มีสุดจะสอนภาษาอังกฤษเพื่อการสื่อสาร You need to be able to communicate in English in a very expert level and then you transfer that. Also another person who came out, which is Richard, he came out a little bit later than Shaman, so he added on some further information.
Well, Shaman was quite right, but I think there were some more details. เฮ้ยชาวแมนไม่ละเอียดเลยเดี๋ยวเราจะทำให้มันละเอียดให้เอง
He tried to include everything together. Let's just separate them and make it in the subcategories. So everyone pay attention at this part. Actually, the 3 characteristics of good EFL teachers of Shaman could be divided into actually 6 subcategories. So the first one เหมือนเดิม theories of teaching, and the second one teaching skills. And this one มันเหมือน Richard bring the first criteria of Chalmers and then separate them into the first one, theory of teaching. It's pretty much like what you did studied in PLT อ่ะอันนั้นเป็นข้อ 1ต้องรู้ว่าการที่เราจะสอนเรื่องหนึ่ง there are silent way, there are total physical response, there are audio lingual method มันมีหลายๆอย่างเราต้องรู้ explore มันก่อน and after that we need teaching skills. Some teaching skills were not taught in classroom. For example, if your students were talking a lot, like in the classroom, how could you stop them? Another thing, it is a communication skills. This is also about how to communicate in class as a person. Next one, Richard came out for the 4th one. I think this one is very good to be highlighted. That Shaman did not really, pay attention to it. Subject matter knowledge. So อันนี้เหมือนเขาแยกขา3ออกมาเลยนะว่าแบบเฮ้ยที่ชาวแมนบอกว่ายูต้องเข้าใจคอนเทกต์รวมแล้วว่าทุกความรู้ที่ยูมีรวมทั้ง society ด้วย Richard บอกแยกกันเลย content ก็คือ content context ก็คือ context. For example, if you teach about a language ถ้าต้องสอน phonetics you need to be expert in sound. It's about pedagogical reasoning skills and decision making. Being a teacher sometimes you need to design the way of the education and design the way of your classrooms. And the last one, this is exactly the same as with Chalmers' theory. Richard บอกว่า contextual knowledge is very important. So you need to understand the educational policy, you need to understand the political issues or what the expectations of the society as well. Let's come back to our discussion or our questions at the first session that I asked you guys. เมื่อกี้เราคุยเรื่องความเป็นครูทีซอลแล้ว We will have a discussion later เดี๋ยวจะ leave คำถามไว้เพื่อเตรียมให้เรากลับไปเตรียมตัวแล้วก็อาจจะมีการทำกิจจี้กันนิดหน่อยในคลาสหน้านะคะมา But now I would like to talk about the content กันบ้าง We won't become a teacher in the future. I would assume that. Even though you may have another plan and that's all fine ไม่เป็นไรนะต้องมาทำความเข้าใจเรื่อง listening and speaking กันก่อน Okay. So let's talk about language skills first. Talk about English or any kind of language. There are definitely 4 skills, everyone. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. General, right? Here we go. So there are 2 conventional ways of dividing them up. บอกว่าเวลาเรามี4สกิลเนี่ยแต่มันบางทีมันจัดหมวดไม่เหมือนกันนะแล้วแต่ so the first way to divide or to group those skills up divided into first receptive skills and the second one productive skills receptive skill ก็คือ received ใช่ไหม productive ก็คือ product ก็คือ produce right receive กับ produce เดาง่าย receptive skills is a passive skill okay so that includes listening and reading เราเป็นผู้รับใช่ไหมอ่านกับฟัง the next one is a productive skill which are speaking and writing you are the one producing the message or conveying the message Here, this is actually the second way of grouping them, and this is my favorite one. That's why we have this class of listening and speaking. In terms of medium, this one it is a spoken medium, which means that you can walk in somewhere, นั่งกอดอกเลยไม่เขียนไม่จับหลับตา You can still communicate to others, and that is spoken medium. And this is my favorite. You don't need to buy pens, you don't need to bring papers, you don't need to bring glasses.And the next one is a written medium. Written medium is reading and writing. You need letters, you need paper, you probably need iPad or something else. So you may understand now that our class, it is based on these ways of dividing skills, which is medium. I would like to introduce you some basic understanding of listening skills. First, เรื่องการฟังเนี่ยตอนนี้ทุกคนแบบเตรียมเคลียร์หูไว้ก่อนเลยนะWhy listening? One interesting statistic of Noonan, and that was in 1998.
Over 50 of the time the students spend functioning in the foreign language, it will be devoted to listening.
เขาบอกว่าเวลาที่เราพูดภาษาหรือว่าใช้ภาษาต่างๆเนี่ยภาษาอังกฤษก็ตามทั้งที่มี4สกิลเนอร์ใช้เวลาสละเวลาทั้งหมด 50% ไปกับ listening แล้วอีก 50% เอาอีก3ตัวไปหารกันเองSo listening is very important, but this seems to be most ignored. Listening is a precursor of speaking. It's a leader of the team. Precursor แปลว่าเป็นตัวนำ It leads to speaking. อันนี้มีหลักฐานที่ชัดเจนมากว่า if you are deaf, you're mute. They cannot identify sounds, which means that they don't have a natural precursor.to help them produce the sounds as well, even though they have the complete or the full function organs in their mouth and their throat or maybe their lung are perfect, but they still can't say a words because they lack of the ability in hearing. I would like to start with the nature of listening. มาเคลียร์ของหลังจากนะ hearing and listening ต่างกันยังไงได้ยินกับฟัง This is an example. Did you hear the sounds? Yes, that's hearing sounds. But listening means that there was some process in your head. Hearing. Well, there are two clapped hands and that's listening. You seem to analyze what is happening here and that becomes a process of listening instead of hearing. Hearing แค่ฟังอยู่ได้ยินเหมือนเรามีอุปกรณ์ที่บังเอิญเดินผ่านไปเราได้ยินอะแต่ว่า listening คือการที่ you process ความหมาย Alright, so what we did to study for today was how do we know whether that person is a good or bad teacher, and there were Shaman's theories and research theories, so those are pretty much the same but they're different in detail, so make sure that you understand those ให้ลองทำเช็คลิสต์ดูก็ได้ว่าwhether you understand both of them or not. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop it anytime in our Facebook group, or you can write it down and we can talk about that later in our classroom. And the next one, we talked about how that we can divide the 4 skills of language together นะว่าเราแบ่งยังไงบ้าง The first way it is based on receptive skills and the productive skill. Medium of the skills written medium, and the next one is a spoken medium, and we are at the spoken medium, listening and speaking one. We talked about why do we study listening, check man. Next one, we talked about what are the nature of listening, what are the differences between hearing and listening ได้ไหมพอเช็คได้ไหม And now we come to the next part, and I do believe that it will be overwhelming มากๆ if I put the very long lectures for you guys. But what I will do today would be a little discussion that I would like you guys to work on those. I will randomly pick you guys to answer, and that might be 70% of the class that would have a chance to answer this. I would like to give you this story, and that was real story from Murray and Christensen. อ่านอันนี้ดูนะ and there were some many interesting details about Thai teachers who teach English in some other countries. Some people who don't really speak Thai and they don't speak English, so that might be some interesting scene. มีสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นมากมายของคนที่ชื่อนิดอย่างเงี้ยจันอยากให้ลองอ่านดู 4 questions left for you guys. Have a chance approximately 2 minutes to present or to answer one question that you like to. ให้เลือกตอบ1คำถาม So the first one, did anything surprise you about Nit's story? And this seems to be very easy questions to answer, but trust me, it isn't. Please be critical, like as the one who know this story. If you answer me just yes I did, I will be very sad. So make sure that if you feel like this is surprising, why? As a learner, youเป็น student ตอนนี้ใช่ไหม but you are the student expecting to be a teacher one day. And the second questions I would like to leave you guys is that if you learned English in a school setting, what variety of English was used would expect to be taught? ให้ลองนึกถึงชีวิตที่ผ่านมา เราเรียนภาษาอังกฤษระบบไหนมา American, British, or maybe mix or whatever ให้ลองแชร์ experience ดู and what do you think about that ทำไม okay? And the third one, how important is it for EFL teachers to understand both British and American English จำเป็นไหมที่อาจารย์สอนภาษาจะต้องเข้าใจทั้ง American and British English there will be no right or wrong. I promise. It depends on your perspective. We're not talking about the right answer. This is not the quiz. So I do have my idea that is completely different from another teacher or another lecturer living here in MFU as well. Even in the School of Liberal Arts, we don't think the same. So different creates things. The last question that you can choose isนิดพูดตอนจบถึงเรื่องนึงแต่ I won't spoil it. Do you agree with Nit or you feel like okay Nit has to change her attitude on this ลองดู it is more than okay to think differently ฉันขอทิ้งlast 2 slides ไว้นิดหน่อยเพื่อ be the resources for your final thoughts of the day that you can help to use to think about those 4 questions ที่จันทิ้งไว้ก็คืออันเนี้ย this is pretty much like the review from your previous class in principal language teaching จันจำชื่อคลาสจริงๆไม่ได้ our world is very big and this is very normal right so if we categorize countries in terms of language that will be or Englishes ใช่ไหม that will be circles inner circles, outer circles, and explaining circles. You are very familiar with those, I know, right? สำหรับคนที่งงไปแล้วเนี่ย I will upload the slides for you guys later as well. ให้ลองกลับไปทวนดูก็ได้ I won't say it again because I do believe that most of you guys have been through that a lot and you may be sick of it already so จันจะไม่ฝืนใจเราทุกคนแต่ว่าอันนั้นอาจจะเป็นหนึ่งในสิ่งที่เราเอามาคอนเซิร์นได้ในการตอบคำถามลองใช้ความรู้หรือว่าความเข้าใจที่มีจากคลาสอะไรก็ตามที่เราเคยเรียนหรือ your personal story ก็ได้ try to think about those and we will talk about that I will leave approximately 1 hour for everyone to share the ideas เราจะต้องได้แชร์ the ideas เรื่องของนิดกันเพราะว่า that will be very important to our upcoming class and that is pretty much everything about today. Don't forget to read Nit's story. Don't forget to think about at least one question, try to answer that with your full perspective.